I want to say how, as a physicist, I have ended up becoming completely obsessed with media and how I see it as being fundamental in the same way that the things that I was taught in school in physics, I always believed were fundamental. So growing up, I learned physics, Newtonian physics, Einsteinian physics, quantum physics, all these kinds of things. And I believed what I believe many of my predecessors in the worlds of physics believed, which is that this is super fundamental, that the world at this basic level is made up of forces and particles and all these kinds of things. And that if you want to understand the world at the deepest level, this is where you go. And then there have been other people who've gone in the philosophical direction or the mathematical direction and said math is the most fundamental thing, philosophy is the most fundamental thing. And what I've become convinced of is that we're living in a fundamentally different world than the world that people lived in, say, 200 or especially 300 years ago. So go back to the age of Newton. Somebody like Isaac Newton or Gottfried Leibniz could actually be pretty knowledgeable about what the worldview is. They could understand theology and law and physics and math and philosophy, and they could kind of correspond with the other leading minds of their day. And together they could say, this is the worldview. Their world, we look back on their worldview and say there are things that are wrong about it, but we can say that there is a worldview that was Newton and Leibniz. They fought about things or whatever, but Newton did understand what Leibniz was trying to say and vice versa. Now we live in a fundamentally different age where the quantity of information we have produced is so large that I can't even claim to understand my sub discipline of physics. I can't say, well, I'm an expert in low temperature thermometry, so I really know low temperature thermometry. No way. I know a tiny piece of low temperature thermometry, which is a tiny piece of condensed matter physics, which is a little part of physics. It's absurd. There are people who have PhDs in almost the same thing that I do, and I can't communicate with them because we have such vastly different types of knowledge. And so what I argue that means is that for any given human mind, my world, my universe, in the same sense that Newton or Leibniz had a universe, my universe is defined by the media that I consume about the world. And I mean that in a sort of statistical sense, in that I do some experiments in the lab and I get specialized in a thing, but most of the information that I learn is the type of information where I'm getting just a tiny piece of a vast universe which my mind will never be able to really encompass. And so how the media filters information into my mind becomes fundamental. You can say it's not fundamental, or this is a trivial statement, it's not real philosophy or something, but in a practical sense, if I want to understand what it means for me as a person, as a mind, to have a cosmology, I've got to go to media because it's everything. Everybody has different facts now, even within the sciences. We all have different approaches to sciences, and it's become incredibly shocking how talking to people, you can realize that people's worldview is completely shaped by this different media landscape, and none of us, I feel like, really know what's true anymore, and that's not just some fake news thing, that has to do with the scale of the media universe. It is so big that none of us ever really know what's going on, not because we're getting fake news, but because that world is so big. So what that means is if I want to be able to build a better world, if I want to have some positive impact on the world around me, that world I have to see as being defined by media. Because anything I learn about science or technology or whatever, I'm going to learn it through the media. I'm going to go to Wikipedia in many cases, or maybe some third-party thing or whatever it is, but it's going to be through media. And the scale of that media and the complexity and the way that other people are imposing their will on me with that media is such that I have to put that first. I have to put the media first in my cosmology, and I want to take that word back. I want to take the word cosmology back from philosophers or astrophysicists or gravity theorists, because the work of gravity theorists has no impact on my life, even as a professional physicist, and certainly not string theorists or cosmologists. None of this affects my life. But if I view cosmology as being what the media environment is around my mind, that's fundamental. So I'm going to take the word cosmology back, and I'm saying that the cosmology of my world is defined by the media that filters information into my mind.